Hidden secrets, the man she never knew. Everyone believed Emma was the luckiest woman in town. She was married to Daniel Carter, a successful businessman, generous neighbor, devoted husband, and the kind of man people trusted without question. Their home looked perfect, their smiles looked genuine, and their marriage seemed untouched by problems. But perfection is often the best disguise. For months, Emma had noticed little things she couldn't explain. Daniel would leave the house after midnight, claiming urgent business meetings. He always carried 2 phones, but never allowed either one out of his sight. Sometimes he returned home with fresh scratches on his hands and blamed them on construction sites. His clothes occasionally carried a strange scent, not perfume, not smoke, but something metallic, like blood. Whenever Emma asked questions, Daniel smiled calmly. "You worry too much." She wanted to believe him. Until the night, everything changed. A violent thunderstorm swept across the city. Daniel rushed out after receiving a phone call, forgetting his second phone on the kitchen counter. Seconds later, it lit up. "Unknown contact. The body has been moved. Destroy the evidence before your wife finds anything." Emma's hands went cold. She read the message again and again. Her breathing became uneven. Body. Evidence. Who was sending these messages? When she tried unlocking the phone, it asked for a password. Before she could do anything else, another notification appeared. If she starts asking questions, silence her. Emma dropped the phone as though it had burned her skin. For the first time in 8 years of marriage, she was terrified of the man she loved. The next morning, Daniel behaved as if nothing had happened. He kissed her forehead, smiled, and left for work. Emma waited exactly 30 minutes before walking into his private office, a room he had forbidden her to enter. After searching for nearly an hour, she discovered a hidden compartment behind a bookshelf. Inside was a locked black case. Breaking the lock with a hammer, she opened it. What she found shattered her world. Stacks of passports under different names, bundles of cash, luxury watches, fake identity cards, encrypted USB drives, a handgun, and dozens of photographs. Some showed Daniel standing beside men whose faces had been crossed out with black marker. Others showed abandoned warehouses, forests, and isolated cabins. One photograph made her scream. It showed Daniel standing beside a frightened young woman whose hands were tied behind her back. On the back of the photo, someone had written, "Witness number 7, problem solved." Emma's heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear the rain outside. Then she heard footsteps. Someone had entered the house. She quickly hid beneath the desk. The office door slowly creaked open. Heavy footsteps crossed the room. She watched a pair of polished black shoes stop inches from where she was hiding. Silence. Then, the stranger whispered, "She's been here." Emma covered her mouth to stop herself from crying out. Minutes later, the footsteps disappeared. She waited another 10 minutes before crawling out. The black case was gone. Only one thing remained. A folded note. "You have 48 hours. That night, every shadow in the house felt alive. Unknown cars parked across the street. Her phone rang repeatedly. No one spoke. Someone breathed into the receiver before hanging up. Emma knew she couldn't trust anyone, not even the police. What if Daniel had people inside the department? Desperate, she secretly hired retired Detective Michael Hayes. Within days, he uncovered a horrifying truth. Daniel Carter didn't exist. His real identity had been erased years earlier. He had changed his name after becoming part of a powerful criminal organization responsible for money laundering, disappearances, and contract killings across several countries. Even more disturbing, Emma wasn't his first wife. She was his third. The first had disappeared without a trace. The second had supposedly died in a car accident. But Detective Hayes discovered that the accident had been carefully staged. Neither woman had ever been found. Emma's name was already listed in one of Daniel's encrypted files. Beside it were 3 chilling words. "Next if necessary." The detective urged her to disappear immediately. But Emma wanted proof. Real proof. She secretly planted a recording device in Daniel's study. That night, Daniel met 3 men dressed in black. She listened from the attic. One of them asked, "What about your wife?" Daniel answered without hesitation, "She knows too much." Another man laughed. "Then you can. Now what has to happen?" Daniel replied in a cold, emotionless voice, "I'll handle it tonight." Emma's blood froze. She slipped out through the attic window just minutes before Daniel searched every room of the house. When he discovered she was gone, his calm mask disappeared. For the first time, she saw the monster hidden beneath it. A nationwide manhunt followed. Daniel used fake identities, bribed officials, and hunted Emma relentlessly. But she had already copied every file, every photograph, every financial record, and every recording. At dawn, she handed everything to federal investigators. Hours later, armed officers raided multiple properties linked to Daniel's organization. Hidden underground rooms were discovered. Secret tunnels, burned documents, weapons, and evidence connecting the group to years of unsolved disappearances. Daniel tried to escape through an abandoned warehouse. Police surrounded the building. After a tense standoff, he was arrested. As officers led him away in handcuffs, he looked directly at Emma. He smiled. "You think this is over?" Emma said nothing. Weeks later, Daniel was sentenced to spend the rest of his life behind bars. Investigators called it one of the darkest criminal cases in decades. Yet one mystery remained unsolved. The bodies of Daniel's first two wives were never found. Months later, Emma moved into a small apartment in another city, trying to rebuild her life. One rainy evening, as she unpacked the last moving box, she found an envelope with no return address. Inside was a single photograph. It showed her standing outside her new apartment earlier that morning. Someone had been watching. On the back of the photograph, written in familiar handwriting, were 6 chilling words. "Secrets never die, they only wait."